Well, here we are. Star Trek Friday. Sorry, it's cold in my house today. Really cold. Um, so welcome to Star Trek Fridays. This is the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina K-R-I-S, T-I-N-A, and it's nice to meet you. I'm trying to learn sign language for one of my book reviews during the week. Victoria Thompson's Gaslight series. One of the characters is deaf, so I'm trying to learn sign language to help with that book review. And uh, Adam, how are you today? Or how today? We are on season 5. We are on disc 2. Star Trek Next Generation episode 208. Although in later things I've seen it switch, but I've asked in previous podcasts, but no one has told me yet why this was named 208 when it was part 1 and why this was named 207 when it was part 2. So someone will have to explain that to me because I do not know. So that's one thing. So here we are with Unification Part 1. I hope you tune in each week, each Friday for these episodes. And then following this episode, we have my If Then. If you like this author, then maybe you like that author. Don't forget Flashback Mondays, where we talk about Romantic Times book review. Whole bunch of books there. I mean, all different genres, all different kinds of books. His romance, inspirational, mainstream fiction, contemporary, science fiction, paranormal, urban, erotica, harlequin, all 9 yards. We hit all those different genres. So, anyways, we are here today with Unification, and we see some 2 great old Star Trek originator characters, should we say? Um, the original, there's no more original than Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, but of course it's just named Nimoy and Dad SAREK. So we shall see how this goes. I hope you'll stick with me through this entire podcast. I wish we could do it live, but there are copyright issues and stuff. So I hope you will join me. First, I would like to mention that this episode was it's kind of fitting that at the time Gene Roddenberry dies, that his original character Spock and Leonard appears on this episode, and I would hope that they would have done a little more of a. I don't remember if they did it at the time. A little more of a dedication, a little more of a special to him. But this is just what the opening statement said. That's all. So this is how they paid their respects to the founder of this fantastic franchise television legacy. I would hope I want to see more Voyager in the future, though. Sorry, I digress. So we start out with Captain's overview. Our terraforming mission to Dorf 1 has been cancelled and the Enterprise recalled to Starbase 234. Fleet Admiral Brackett would not discuss the matter on subspace for the reasons she said would soon be clear. I apologize, Captain, for the mystery, but we must attempt to contain the information I'm about to reveal to you for at least as long as possible. Picard says, I must admit you've piqued my curiosity, Admiral. Brackett says, 3 weeks ago, one of our most celebrated ambassadors, an advisor to Federation leaders for generations, disappeared. He left no word of his destination. 2 days ago, intelligence reports placed him on Romulus, and I assure you it was an unauthorized visit. and she has the computer initiate linkage between this terminal and Starbase Alpha 29. Okay, so I know I kind of killed the suspense here, but I wanted to ask all you Star Trek people out there. She has the the messages between the ships and Starfleet and possibly Earth. Are there little satellites, millions and millions of little satellites between where they are and where Earth is? Little telecommunication satellites? Because are we supposed to believe that the ship sends a message out into space and it gets to Earth? Or are there? We've never seen it, and it's never been addressed in any of the episodes. But I was thinking about this. Are there itty bitty satellites stationed, million and billions of satellites stationed all over the place, all over space, so that they can transmit messages back to Earth? It's never been addressed. So I was wondering how the signal reached Earth, or how the signal reaches all the different planets. If you're not in range, if you're not in satellite range or visual range, because you know us, our tower goes down and we lose cell phone service like that. So, I mean, it was just a hypothetical thing that they've never actually brought up. Everybody's just taking it for granted that they just press a button and they can call Earth, even though they're, in the neutral zone or in Romulus or Vulcan, that we can just send a signal out and it'll be there. And the telephones work, kind of thing. I guess, it's sci-fi, you have to let it go. But it was just something I was thinking about. That, the signals just go. They always work. That we send the signal and it takes a week or so to reach Earth. But are there little satellite dishes all over the Milky Way to transmit the message? Because how does the message does it just float through space? There's got to be a wire or a telegram or a signal or a satellite dish somewhere. I just thought I'd bring that up. It just popped in my head. So she brings up the screen, and the computer says linkage complete, and Picard says a defector. If it is, the damage to Federation security would be immeasurable. Taken on Romulus by a long-range scanner computer enhanced image in Section 4 Delta. And there is the unmistakable Spock. We shall see. So then we have a captain's overview. Captain's log, Stargate 45236.4. As I studied the intelligence reports on Ambassador Spock's disappearance, I cannot help but feel a deeper, more personal concern about his mission. For I know this man through his father. It was barely a year ago that I shared a mind meld with the Vulcan SAREK. Now we must meet again as I attempt to find an explanation for his son's actions. So Riker comes in and says, "We will be coming into orbit of Vulcan in less than an hour, Captain. Picard said we should tell Sarek's wife of our plans. Already been taken care of. She's transporting over at 0700. And Sarek, Riker says he's too ill. And Picard says the man is dying and it's my honor to tell him that his son may have betrayed the Federation. Riker says, how well do you know Spock? Picard says, I met him once. What I know of him comes from history books and, of course, my mind meld with his father. That must cover a lot of ground. Picard says, not as much as you'd imagine. Sarek and Spock were sometimes father and sons, and as we know, Riker and his father had a tumultuous relationship too. And that was one of the things they took care of a few seasons ago. So another thing, look at this. turned up intelligence sweep, and he hands over the tablet. Metal fragments. What do you make of it? Possibly disassembled components identified as Vulcan, recovered from a downed Ferengi vessel. They were found in crates marked metal supplies. Contraband? It's been sent to Vulcan for identification. Starfleet has requested we lend a hand. So they've got another mystery on their hand. Where are all these supplies going from the salvage yard, and who's stealing them? Now, I don't know why, but every time Picard has tea, I'm thinking it's Earl Grey tea. But he's given this lady mint tea, Spock's stepmother. And so her Mirren, she says, mint tea, it's been years since I've had it. Vulcans have some kind of strange concoction they call mint, and you'd never recognize it. Picard says, Mirren, do you know why I've come to Vulcan? I must talk to you about Spock. Mirren says he didn't even say goodbye to his father before he left. Picard, is it possible he could have been abducted? Mirren says no. He wrapped up all of his affairs carefully. He knew he was going. Picard says, do you have any idea why he disappeared like this? Captain, as far as I'm concerned, he disappeared a long time ago. Picard said, would it be inappropriate to ask what happened between you and Spock? Not between us, between Spock and his father. They argued for years, that was family, but when the debates over the Cardassian War began, he attacked SAREK's position publicly. He showed no loyalty to his father. Picard said, I am not aware that SAREK was offended by Spock's opposition. I was offended, she says. I made sure Spock knew it. I am very protective of my husband. I do not apologize for it. Picard says, does SAREK have any idea why Spock might have left? Baron says, I don't know. If you could see SAREK as I do, wasting in bed, whispering to himself, he wants to see his son. He wants to heal any rift that may still remain. Now it may be too late. Picard says, Perrin, would you allow me to see SAREK? Perrin says, if anyone else, I would never permit it, but you are a part of him and he of you. So she's going to allow him to see SAREK. And I have some questions about that too. So then we're in the cargo bay, and Riker and LaForge are inspecting all the metal junk. Riker says the Vulcans haven't figured out what these fragments are, but they've determined that the metal is deuterium alloy. LaForge says that pretty well indicates that they're Vulcan, and deuterium also means that whatever it was originally designed for use in space. From the look of the damage, it must have been a high-speed impact. Riker says yes, a Ferengi cargo ship that went down in the Hanaloin asteroid belt. The debris spread over 100 square kilometers. LaForge says, could be weapons away. Riker says, that's my first thought, but the Vulcans have no record of any stolen weapons or stolen parts for that matter. LaForge says this is going to be like putting a big jigsaw puzzle together when you don't even know what the picture's supposed to be. And Riker goes, yep. So this is like one part of the stuff that's going on. They have to solve the mystery of who's taken the junk and why. And then they also have to solve the mystery of Spock. So those are your two plot lines. First of all, what kind of bed is that? That's not a normal bed. It actually looks like a water bed almost. No pillow, no socks, no blanket. Isn't he cold? Now, I had a relative pass away from Alzheimer's last year. And it was Alzheimer's. Face it, it's Alzheimer's. But no, we had to call it dementia. We had to get all this testing done. We had to go through all this other stuff and try this and try that. It was Alzheimer's. And we weren't allowed to call it Alzheimer's because it's delicate. We were offended by that term. We wanted to call it dementia and not Alzheimer's. We weren't allowed to say Alzheimer's around family. We had to say dementia. The same thing. And then it was argued that they were different things. It was Alzheimer's. And it got progressively worse. Some violency. Well, the initial stages were, I wanted to say something. I'm aware of the fact that I forgot what I was going to say, and it bothers me. And it got a little worse and a little worse and a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. And to being violent and angry and upset that we were forgetting things, and eventually forgetting who people were, and then forgetting plate of food, reach for the food, forget what we were reaching, even though it's in front of you, even though you can physically see it. You get this far in your reach and you forget what you're reaching for. But it's right here. But she still forgot. She couldn't know memory. Forgot how to use utensils. Forgot how to eat, how to swallow, and forgot bodily functions. Those were gone early on. And just laid there and starved to death. Because there was no life-saving issues in this place. I know another place that if the patient becomes dehydrated, they get some fluid, stuff like that. But because she was so far gone in this situation, they let her starve to death. So that's what, I don't know. We don't know if she was aware. I think it bothered us more than it bothered her, but we don't know because there wasn't too much communication. She just couldn't eat, didn't know how to chew, didn't know how to swallow, nothing. It was all gone. And, in the end, it was Alzheimer's. And anyway, I want to know where his socks are. Is he cold? It has an inky dinky pillow. Why doesn't he have a blanket? His wife is not sleeping with him, obviously. Is this what Vulcans consider comfort? I don't understand. I got cold looking at him. I literally got cold. My feet got cold. My hands got cold. And I was cold. And I'm sitting there going, is he not cold? Or maybe his dementia, Alzheimer's is so bad that he's not aware that he's cold. But you think his wife would get him a blanket or something? Or put socks on his feet? I don't know why they didn't do these things. Maybe the actor didn't think he needed socks or a blanket. Maybe they wanted to show his anguish and the blanket would have hid the anguish. And there she goes. You have to check out my New Year's Eve thing for her identity. But she always, 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 always goes off every single podcast, no matter what time of day. Bing, 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 bing. So 9. She usually stops at 8 or 9. And recently, all of a sudden, after 20 years, she's gone to 12, which is weird. But anyways, I'm just cold. And it's a little chilly today, and I'm freezing, and he's making me colder. Power suggestion. I'm like, where are his socks? So his wife says he is like this most of the time. His emotions have taken over. Sometimes I can bring him out of it. SAREK, you will listen. SAREK says, go for me. Perrin says, PICARD is here. SAREK says, no more chaos, no more. Perrin says, I will leave you alone with him. He will either acknowledge you or he won't. And then PICARD tries to talk to him. So PICARD talks to SAREK. SAREK, I have come a long way to see you. SAREK says, I will not answer. PICARD says, I will speak to you about your son. SAREK says, I wish no one with me. PICARD said, about Spock. Spock? Yes, he is missing. Is that you, PICARD? PICARD says, hello, old friend. SAREK says, you're here on Vulcan. PICARD says, I need your help. I must find Spock. SAREK says, he's not here. I know, he's been reported on Romulus. On Romulus? Yes. Why? I hope to find that out from you. SAREK, on Romulus? You're going there, aren't you? To find him. Picard says yes. Do you have any idea what might have taken him to Romulus? SAREK says no. Is there anyone Romulus he might know or choose to contact? SAREK says Pardek? Picard says, who is Pardek? SAREK says, it could be Pardek. Picard says, who is Pardek? SAREK says, he is a Romulan senator. Spock has maintained a relationship with him over the years. I don't know how they met. At the Kittimer conference, I imagine. Picard says, Pardek represented Romulus? SAREK says, I'm sure he did. In fact, I recall Spock coming to me with optimism about maintaining a continual dialogue with the Romulans. I told him it was illogical to maintain such an expectation. Spock was always so impressionable. This Romulan, Pardek, had no support at home. Of course, in the end, I was proven correct. I gave Spock the benefit of experience of logic. He never listened. Never listened. Picard says, it's been suggested that Spock might have defected. SAREK says, never. I will accept many things, but never that. Picard says, but you believe he might have gone there to see Pardek? And SAREK goes, the Romulan senator? Pardek? How do you know of him? Picard says, I've heard of him. SAREK says, that's what he's done. He's gone to see Pardek. Picard says, do you know what business they might have had together? SAREK says, no, I never knew what Spock was doing. When he was a boy, he would disappear for days in the mountains. I asked him where he had gone, what he had done. He refused to tell me. I insist that he tell me. He would not. I forbade him to go. He ignored me. I punished him, endured it, silently, but he always returned to the mountains. One might ask as well the river not to run. But secretly I admired him, the proud core of him that would not yield. Sir, Picard says, we're part of each other. I know that he caused you pain, but I also know that you love him. Tell him, Picard. And he tries to do the thing. Picard helps him do the thingy. I can't do the thingy. There we go. I did the thingy. um, peace and long life. Live long and live long and Spock, my son, and Picard goes and prosper. It's sad. Alzheimer's is very sad. And there goes to show you that regardless of race, regardless of a species of alien, Alzheimer's hits everybody. So then we have another overview. Captain's log stardate 45240.1. To cross the neutral zone, I require a cloaked ship. To that end, I have set course for the Klingon homeworld. After all we did for Garon during the recent war, I am certain he'll be happy to return the favor. Yeah, right! Then we're back on the bridge of the Enterprise, and Picard is talking to Worf. Still no response from the Klingons, Mr. Worf? Worf says no. Picard says he's ignoring me. What other explanation is there? Riker says, seems after hailing him for 3 days he would have found a minute to talk to you. Worf says, sir. Yes, Lieutenant. I believe I know why our messages are not being answered. Garan has been rewriting Klingon history. Rewriting history? Yes, he's claiming it was his courage, his genius, what brought an end to the Civil War. Picard says, I see. In the new version, there is no mention of the Federation help in his rise to power. If Worf's right, Riker says, then our arrival would be an uncomfortable reminder of the facts. Picard says he can take all the credit he wants, I don't care. But I do need a ship. Well, if Garan won't talk to me, get someone who will. Somebody on the High Council, perhaps. Worf says, yes, sir. Then he goes to talk to Data. Oh, I want to show it now because it won't be there later. But I wanted to show it now. Picard's got that jacket on. But then when he goes on to the Klingon ship later, he doesn't have the jacket. And I was thinking that if he had the jacket, he could have used the jacket as a pillow on the ship. And we'll explain that later. But I wanted to show the jacket so that you would know what I was talking about when I mentioned the jacket. If that makes sense. So then Picard talks to Data. He says, I have a visual identification of Senator Parduk of Romulus. This is a Barolian record of a trade negotiation in which Parduk participated in 4 years ago. And he shows it on screen. Let me see if I can do this. So then he runs the program, and then Picard asks him to run again. Computer freeze. Call up the intelligence scan of Spock on Romulus. Computer hands far left figure and compare. Same man. Parduk. One answered question. What do we know of him? Data says he has been in public service since he was a young man. A senator for 9 decades. He is considered a man of the people. He has sponsored many reforms. Reportedly, Romulan leadership considers him to be somewhat of a radical because he has been an advocate of peace throughout his career. Picard says, I can see why Spock would cultivate a relationship with him. Where would we find him other than on the floor of the Romulan Senate? Data says the district he represents is called the Cracton segment. He maintains a dwelling there. Picard says, thank you, Mr. Data. Data says, there is more, sir. I have taken the liberty of expanding the parameters of my search and have discovered that Parduk has several relatives in the Cracton segment. I believe you will be able to locate him on the 3rd day of the Romulan week when the Senate is not in session. Thank you, Mr. Data. Your resourcefulness never ceases to amaze me. Data says, thank you. So then Worf says they are being hailed. And Picard goes, Garan or Kata? And Worf says, neither. It's a junior adjutant. So his name is Bija. So they put him on screen. And Bija goes, greetings, Captain. I regret to inform you that Garan and the High Council are quite busy and won't be able to speak with you today. Picard said, Garan is aware that we have been transmitting messages for 3 days. He says, Captain Garan wishes it possible to talk with everyone who wants an audience, but he is one man. The demands on his time are formidable if you would like me to take a message. Now, have you ever known Klingons to be so diplomatic and speak so nicely? It just doesn't seem like the type. I mean, I guess that's what you call it. What's that word? That stereotype word. So he says, a message, very well. Tell Garan, leader of the High Council of the Klingon Empire, that his arbiter of succession, Jean-Luc Picard, needs a favor. But he says, a favor? He goes, yeah, a cloaked ship. He goes, a cloaked ship? That is no small favor. Picard, it is a mission that could have repercussions throughout the quadrant. Picard says, how would it benefit the Klingon Empire? I'm sure Garen will ask. Picard says, the only benefit to the Klingon Empire would be our gratitude. That is what you want me to tell him? Yes, and please add that if he is unable to provide a ship, that I am sure there are others in the Klingon Empire who will be willing to help me. And then they would have our gratitude. He goes, I see. Oh, and please tell him that I'm immensely gratified that he is prospering so well. A tribute to his skilled leadership. I'm like, yeah. So then we're in sick bay. And Dr. Crusher says, they're not removable, are they, Data? Data says, removable? And Crusher says, your ears. Data says, no, Doctor, they are fully integrated components. Crusher says, we'll have to do some molds of the ears as well. Picard says, what about his skin color? We'll have to do some tests on his skin pigmentation. Changing it to appear Romulan shouldn't be too much difficult. We just have to make sure we can change it back again afterwards. Haha. And then Crusher says, your right eye is 004 higher than your left. And Picard goes, no one's perfect, Doctor. Crusher says, if you want a proper fit to your prosthetic, trust your tailor. Picard says, anything from Garan? No. No, but after your tailor is done, would you join me in the cargo bay? Mr. LaForge has made some progress with the metal fragments. Crusher says, these two still have an appointment with Mr. Mott to have their hairpieces designed. Picard says, 30 minutes, number one. Now, I got a question. And I guess I'll start addressing it now. She's doing all this stuff here. She does not go on the Romulan vessel. No, the Klingon vessel with them. So I want to know how they did this all themselves. Was it a mask? Would they just pull it over? I want to know how they did it themselves on the Klingon ship with no additional help, because it was supposed to be just Picard and Data. We're just supposed to accept this. And again, he's got the jacket. So then we're in the cargo bay. The Forge says, what we seem to have here is a navigational diffractor array, or at least what's left of one. Riker says, why would anyone want a Vulcan shield array? The Forge says, beats me, Commander. Every question we answer there seems to bring up two more. Picard said, you're certain this is Vulcan? The Forge says, yes, sir. Metallurgical analysis confirmed that, and by running a molecular pattern trace, we were actually able to identify the ship as T'Pau. It was decommissioned years ago and sent to surplus depot at Qualar 2. As far as anybody knows, it's still there. Worf says, Worf to Captain Picard. Picard says, yes. Worf says, a Klingon vessel is decloaking off our port bow. Compliments of Garan. Picard says, Mr. Worf, will you convey my gratitude to the captain and advise him that Mr. Data and I will be transporting over shortly? Riker says, I'd like to take the Enterprise to Qualar 2, sir, see what's out there. Picard says, agreed. And thank you, Mr. LaForge. And then he leaves. Now, I got a question for you. Can somebody turn the lights on? Why is it always so dark on a Klingon vessel? I need some light. You did all this work with the prosthetics. You did all this work on the makeup. Don't you want people to see what you've done? It's not dramatic. It's just another ship. We need to see what's on it. I know my duty, Captain. When I'm giving orders, I follow them, but I do not like secrets. I want to know why we are going on this mission. Picard says, I'm sorry, it's a classified mission. Kevar says, you're going after the defector, aren't you? Picard says, the defector? He says, do you think information like that stays a secret? Ambassador Spock has gone to Romulus, and you are going after him. Picard says, Captain, your orders are to take us to a set of coordinates near Romulus and to bring us back, and that is all I'm prepared to discuss. Kivik says, if we are discovered by Romulus, it means death for us all. Picard says, I realize that. So they set a course for Romulus. So then he takes them to their quarters. And it's a room that has zero frills, zero furniture in it, except a hard ass, rock solid bed. Kiva says it may not be what you're used to on Starfleet ship. Picard says, quite nice, thank you. And Data says, Kiva, are these the captain quarters or my own? And he said, you're going to share them. We have limited space. We are a military ship. We are not a pleasure craft. Of course, this will be fine. God said, you sleep Klingon style. We do not soften our bodies by putting a pad down. And he pats the thing, and it's hard, and it's cement. He goes, because I prefer it that way. And he goes, you will take your meals with us. We do not serve Federation food. And they do all this pondering, and it's just too much. It's just too much. Okay, so then we're back on the Enterprise, and they've made contact. Well, Riker has a voice overview. First officer's log, stardate 45240.6. The Enterprise is entering Quaylaw 2, home of Federation Surplus Depot, operation by the Zactorm. We hope to find out how the salvage deflector array ended up in the hands of the Ferengi. Worf says, I've made contact, Commander, and they put the guy on screen. Riker's talking to this Doc Crunchen guy, and he said he's Quartermaster Surplus Depot at Z15. Riker says, I need some information about a Vulcan ship, the T'Pau. It was sent to you a few years ago. He goes, do you have an appointment? Riker's like, no. He's like, then I will be unable to help you. You may communicate with scheduling. And he cuts them off. And Riker's like, who does he think he is? So they call him back. And Troy says, the quartermaster of the supplier with information you need. Right. Mr. Worf reestablished communication. And they reestablished communication. And then he goes, Mr. Doc, and the information I need resolves a matter of major importance to the Federation. I need to access your logs, your files. My people can do the work. He says, I don't allow outsiders into my computer system. Riker says, all right, then one of your people can do the work. He goes, I wish I had the people to spare, but I don't. Riker says, what would you suggest? Dawkins says, I don't know. Contact me when you reach orbit. The expression on her face. So Riker's like, I don't believe this. Troy says he's king of his particular hill, Commander. You have to treat him that way. And Riker says to her that he feels this is a job for a ship's counselor. She should be the one to negotiate and talk with Dakin and do the negotiations that Dakin will respond better to a female, and a pretty female at that. Because Riker's like, Counselor, this feels like the perfect job for you. And she's just like, yeah. But she's female, she's a counselor, she's good at public relations. So they work this up. So that's what a space junkyard looks like. Stuff hanging out in space. There's all your trash, all your garbage out in space in this far off system. Just hanging out there in space. I want to know how come this stuff doesn't fall. But it's just all hanging out there in space. All this junk, all this trash. So, Mr. Dawkins comes in, and he says, quite a ship you have. Riker says, we've tied into your computers if you'd like to access the files. I usually don't see them in such good condition. By the time they get to me, they're always falling apart. Bryce says, Mr. Duncan, we must find this ship, and you're the only one who can help us. Duncan says, you are? Deanna Troy, ship counselors. Dawkins says he probably figures that we don't see a lot of handsome women out this way, and someone like you might get a little more cooperation from me. He's right. What's the name of that ship? And he goes to the station and looks it up for them. So, he says, the Chapal Vulcan Registry, they are logged in stardate 41334. LaForge says, where's the ship now? Dawkins says, dock, section 18, gamma 12. Do you want me to take you there? And he says, appreciate it. And Dawkins says, Helmsman laying a heading 141 by 208, ahead slow 200 kph. I suppose this is your first visit to a junkyard, isn't it? You'd be surprised at some of the things I find on these ships. And he's telling Troy that he once found a 14-foot Caldorian eel on board a freighter in someone's locker. And then he says, you're serious? And he said, yes. And he goes, I'll show it to you. He nursed it back to health. Get there and they put it on screen, and Dawkins like, what? Where is it? What happened to it? These are the correct coordinates. The Chapao is missing. Dawkins says, the Chapao is missing. Riker says, how could a ship disappear from your depot? Dawkins says, I'm not accustomed to losing things, Commander. I will find your ship for you. I have the Chapao cross-reference in 4 different directories. When was it brought here? Was it shipped in material and ornaments? He says, of course. The Forge says, can you tell us what happened to this navigational deflector? It was routed to the Tripoli, a holding vessel on the outer rim of the shipyard. It's not there anymore. What's left of that deflector is laid out on the floor of a cargo bay. Dawkins says, how can that be? Riker says, perhaps we should pay a visit to the Tripoli. And they go over to where the Tripoli should be. And it's an empty space. And he's like, I do not understand. This is not possible. We beam goods to the Tripoli on a regular schedule. There was a shipment yesterday. There's another set for today. It must be there. Riker says, when is transport? Dawkins says, 2 hours from now. A shipment of deuterium storage tanks. Riker says, align the Enterprise so we appear to be one of the abandoned ships, Mr. LaForge. When we're positioned, shut down the engines and all system sensors and life support. Aye, sir. I have a feeling somebody's going to be here to receive those storage tanks. I'd be very interested to know who it is. Now, it's just my opinion that that's an easy junkyard to get into. There's no walls, there's no fences, there's no force field, there's nothing to prevent anybody coming in from helping themselves, and they would never know. Obviously, he didn't know, if this has been going on a long time, that an entire ship disappeared, and he didn't know anything about it. Obviously, he doesn't take good inventory of his stuff. He may log it in and put it someplace, but then he just forgets about it. So obviously, it's really easy to gain access to all the stuff in this junkyard. Most junkyards I know have high fences and security and the pointy wires at the top. But this is easy. Anybody can get into this. No force field, no fences, no guarding, nothing. So, again, could we have some lighting so we can actually see what they're talking about? We can't, we can't feel for them or understand their situation unless we can see it. And we can't see it. We can have some lighting, please. These quarters were obviously intended for 1 crew member, sir. There is but a single sleeping space. Picard said, I'm sure the Klingons found it amusing to put us in here together. Data says, since I do not require sleep, I suppose you take the shelf, sir. I am content to stand. Picard says, very well, Mr. Data, thank you. So then we had this little kid moment. You looking at me, stop looking at me, you looking at me, you looking at me, stop looking at me. That little kid moment. So he lays down and it's just a flat cement board and he puts his arm under, and I'm wondering where his jacket is and could he not roll it up under his head. But anyways, So he lays down and he says goodnight, and Picard says thank you, and then Picard says, "What are you doing?" And Data's like, "Was I making noise?" And Picard says, "No, not exactly." Data says, "I was processing all the information we have accumulated in Romulan society. I am preparing for the task of impersonating a Romulan." Picard says, "I see. Would you like me to just continue, sir?" Picard says, "No, please go on." And then she's going off again. Picard's like, "What are you looking at?" "I'm not looking at anything, sir. I'm continuing to organize my files." "But you're looking at me." Data says, "I'm sorry if I was disturbing you, sir. I will not look in your direction." And he turns around. And then Picard's like, "Screw it. I'm not going to sleep with him standing there like that." And then the Klingon calls them. They want them to come to the bridge. Again, you artists do all of your work on the makeup and stuff. My little pal here, my little co-host showed up, and we can't see. You know, you've done all this makeup work on these actors, and they've sat in those chairs for hours upon hours upon hours. We can't see them. What the hell? Turn on the lighting, you guys. We can't see it. This is a little bit of a dramatic situation. We can't see anybody. What the F? So, the guy tells them they got a subspace message. SAREK has passed away. But again, it would be helpful if we could see it. I'm just saying, what good is a dramatic situation if you can't see it? Worf says, "Commander, sensors detect a ship approaching at warp speed. Identification negative. No transponder signal, no subspace marker. Sounds like they don't want to be identified," the Forge said. Worf said, "The ship is coming out of warp, sir. On screen." Okay, so they wake up the Enterprise. They go, "Hey, we're here. We caught you." And apparently the ship is armed like the Enterprise, and they try to hail them. They don't answer. They fire on the Enterprise. The Enterprise shields go down a little bit. They fire back. And we do a tactical firing, and they do it precisely in the precise location. What? Come here. They do it in the precise location, and they end up destroying the ship because of all the armament on it. One little fire caused the whole ship to. Come here. You keep coming over here. And the whole ship goes completely. And it looks like a really fancy ship, too. So, I want to know, when they went in that room, their room that they were supposedly staying in, they had no luggage. Because if they had luggage, they could have folded these up and Picard could have used one as a pillow instead of suffering like that. So they had to have had some luggage with the costumes in it. And I want to know how they did their faces and stuff. There had to be someone to do it for them. And I do not think a Klingon would have done it for them. So the fact that they're not on the Enterprise, I want to know who did this. Because I'm pretty sure the two of them didn't do it. Data says, "I would not have thought it possible, sir. I am eager to test the success of our efforts. It does remain to be seen if the Romulans will accept us. Captain, you seem awfully unusually pensive since we received the news of Ambassador Spock's death." Spock says, "SAREK and I share a particular bond, our lives touched in an unusual way. I admit I feel the effects of his death. The tenor of this mission has changed. Mr. Data, at least it has for me. We were sent to confront Spock about his disappearance. Now I also have to tell him that his father is dead. Data says, I do not entirely understand, sir. As a Vulcan, Ambassador Spock would simply see death as the logical result of his father's illness. Picard said, it's never quite that simple, not even for a Vulcan. Certainly not for Spock, who is half human. Years spent in conflict, and now the chance to resolve those differences is gone. Data says, considering the exceptional long lifespan of Vulcans, it does seem odd that SAREK and Spock did not choose to resolve those differences in the time allowed. Father and son, both proud, both stubborn, more alike than either of them were prepared to admit. A lifetime building emotional barriers. They're very difficult to break down, and now the time has come, it is too late. It's a difficult moment, it's a lonely one, it's a moment Spock is about to face. Alright, so then we're on the Klingon bridge here. And again, he's making all these comments about Picard's and Data's appearance, but due to the lighting, we can't see it. So what the F? He says, don't you two look sweet. Be careful, android. Some Romulan broody might take a liking to you. Lick that paint right off your ears. Do you know that what the Romulans would do if they discover who you are? Picard says, I have a good idea. We're ready to transport down to the surface. Giver says, just so we understand each other, my orders don't include rescuing you. So then they're in the Romulan office. And Narelle says, Senior Pardek, you received my message. Pardek says, I got here as quickly as I could, Proconsul. Narelle says, do you know of this human, Jean-Luc Picard? And he shows them the picture. Pardek says, I know nothing of him. Narelle has, have you seen him recently? Pardek says, to my knowledge, I've never seen him. Narelle says, I've received intelligence indicating he's on his way here. Perhaps here already. Here on Romulus? He says, yes. Curious, isn't it? I suppose we better find out if the report is accurate or merely rumor. Circulate his likeness among his security forces. Remind them that if he is here, he is probably disguised as one of us. Pardek says, I'll see to it. So then Picard and Data are on the street. This is definitely the street on which the intelligence scan of Spock and Pardek was taken, sir. Adjusting for the optical distortions, I'm able to verify the architectural structures. Picard says, where were they standing, Data? You're moving about in a very well android way. He goes, I'm sorry, Captain. I'll try to be more careful. Don't call me Captain. I understand, sir. I found the place where they were standing. Where? And they go over to the doorway. And a legal intercessor's office, similar to name Pardek. It would appear to be one of his relatives. Picard knocks, tries the door handle, doesn't work. Data says, nonetheless, I recommend we keep this location under surveillance. I have clearly determined this is Pardek's routine. On days when the Senate is not in session, he invariably comes to this section at the medium hour. So then they go over to the local restaurant, which really doesn't look like a restaurant to me. So then this woman brings them soup, and Picard says, what time does the intercessors open office? And she's like, why do you want to know? And he goes, I need his services. He was recommended. And she says, I haven't seen you here before. And Data's like, we are here for the day from the city of Rateg. And she says, Rateg, I don't think so. And he asks, why? And she says, you don't sound like you're from Rateg. And Data says, it's a misconception that all Rateg speak with a particular inflection. In fact, there are 12 different. And Picard tries to shut him up. We come from several kilometers outside the city. Or perhaps you come from security forces to watch the intercessor's office. Is he in trouble? You're mistaken, madam. She says, doesn't matter to me. I don't know when he opens. Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment, Jolin Chiru. And he tries the soup, and it's absolutely horrible. And there she goes again. Bing, 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 bing. 11. Last time it was 9. So then they are trying to eat that horrible soup. And again, Data doesn't eat. He's a computer. What the hell is he putting liquids inside himself for? then they get captured by a couple of Romulans and they take them into a cave. And I would like to point out once again, it is so dark you can't see anything. What the hell is making this set if you can't see anything? So then Picard comes. Welcome to Romulus, Captain Picard. Don't let our soldiers frighten you. We had to get you off the street as quickly as we could. Romulan security knows that you're here. I am Picard. You are among friends, Captain. Picard says, I have an urgent mission from the Federation. I am looking for Ambassador Spock. And he comes out of Spocky and says, yes, you have found him. And that's where the episode ends. So, again, if they had better lighting, we have finished Unification Part 1. So we did Disaster. We did the game last week with Wesley, and hope you listened to my rant about Wesley. Today we did Unification Part 1, which is number 208. I don't get why. And then next week we're doing a Unification Part 2, 207. I hope you will tune in. I also hope that you will do Flashback Mondays, Star Trek Fridays. Stay tuned for the If Then episode later this afternoon. And my daily book reviews. We're going through Patterson. We're just about finished with him now. We're going through Victoria Thompson. I'm trying a few other new authors, including we're doing the Beatrice Small, Sky O'Malley series, and a few others. So please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Thank you.